Well, um, good afternoon or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to introduce again my friend Walker. Uh, he's a spiritual person who has a lot of insight into the situation in the world today, both in the world we know and the world we don't. And um, well, how you doing, Walker? How I hear you've got a new project.
Yeah, hello guys. My name is Walker. I'm the one that's running Spiritual Reader um on my channel. So if you come by, you see that. I'm doing good. I had a good morning, got myself some food, and I'm good. I feel good.
Well, tell me, what kind of problems can you help with someone through a reading?
Well, I just go in and I actually, one of the first things I go in before I even do anything with the car is, I go in and I feel the energy and I see what's going
Mhm.
on, different points. I'm getting better at it, seeing what's going on. Usually I go see the health side first. So once I get to the health side, and you start asking, questions about, anything about your past guys, what they, your spirit guides, what they want to say,
Right?
um, and then family, and then from there, once we get that over with, then we just do a quick rune reading.
Gee, this.
So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, I do runes. I do rune first because it's like immediate communication right away,
wow.
and
I
that
felt
way,
something from that one there.
yeah, yeah. This is called Yogalas,
Uh,
and it's really really good. Let me give you a full definition if you really want that for you. This is the rune of victory and success. So
yes.
something that you were working towards, needed, or wanting to, has happened. You have reached a specific goal.
Okay.
So whenever this comes up, it's like a goal has been reached. It's been what you've been working for, getting those immediate things done.
I can't believe it. That's exactly what happened to me yesterday.
Ah,
That's exactly
so
what happened.
yeah, yeah, it's just immediate information from the spirit guys that want the because like communication, it's like how we're talking. They're doing the same thing but faster, but then they have the ability to, kind of like help you guide you into which cars go to which situation because people have so many questions and everyone does this too. So
I don't
wow.
believe in coincidence. Now, you just picked up that rune, and I'm just going to tell you, without going into too much detail, I've been working on a video project for about 4 months or even 6 months where I was going to do a little expose on people living in their RVs and how that's an economic problem and how something should be done because these people have jobs, they're working, yet they
Yeah,
have to live on the street in an RV and they don't get any support, they don't get any social services, there's nothing
yeah, they don't.
to help them, yet they pay their taxes, right? So I did a video and an interview with some of those folks, and
I saw that video. I did.
I got aired on UNN, and I was really amazed because they've got a worldwide reach,
Oh wow.
and I was just blown over, and I'm so happy that I achieved that goal. And here I am with you, and you're telling me the same thing. So, how does this work? What kind of connection happens between someone and their and the higher things like the Fae you mentioned and the spirit guides?
So it's a simple thing. When you really, really start becoming awake, you start realizing your energy, it has a connection. It's just like Wi-Fi, that immediate connection. It's like those three little bars. And it's just boom, 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 and it's like I'm
So
connected.
there's something
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, yeah. And then it's funny enough, the Wi-Fi actually is really, really similar to how our crown, the levels of our crown is actually connected. So focal points, there's different section of the overall crown energy,
Well, that
which is
makes sense because you have heard,
yeah,
of course, that some nefarious people could possibly be using a 5G frequency of Wi-Fi to mess us up.
it yeah, and it's different size to it. So it's like obviously the behavior and how they use that tool
Right.
makes it the big difference, and their knowledge behind that tool and to continue in their collection of experiences, which creates their wisdom, um, which
Yeah.
is very connected to the crown, because crown has always been about wisdom, so your collection of experiences. After you get data, you're learning. Um, you once you understand that,
Yes.
it becomes your wisdom. So your crown is literally is purple, like purple, sometimes even white, and bringing information from the field. So that constant information coming in as you're tuning into that allows your spirit guides to go and actually give you image, and it's
Would
always image.
would it be fair to say that we're doing it all the time, but don't know that we're doing it and can't interpret it and need a little push?
Absolutely. It's a constant thing that has been uh sorry, it's a constant connection. It's just always moving, and once you are aware of that,
Mhm.
then it's a simple thing as just talking. It's just without words, but because eventually as you move on from words, everyone is always, I always get this wrong, but a picture says 1,000 words or a
That's right.
thousand meanings. And so you can, once you get used to that understanding, it makes it easier to see the images that they try to give you. So when you're doing connections with cards or anything that's related to um like you pick up a card and you
Right.
feel into it. So obviously the cards that I do with these runes, this is a dragon, this is a unicorn. That
Yes.
is means aggressive positive change.
Uh,
And that is really, really important because essentially if I pick this card up and I understand that meaning, it's my connection with spirit guides bringing me to that card and having me pick it up. Because they can't control you, but they can move, they can put their energy with you. So it's like a training. It's like when you training to become a warrior, training sword fight.
right.
Your teacher will come and help you guide you, move your arms with you, just to show you the movements, just to make sure that you understand that. And as over time, you get really, really good with it. And that's exactly what they're doing with communication with cards. The cards that can usually come out, and usually the simples is always keep it simple. So you usually just pick up the first card that comes up.
I've
You do a
always
little shuffle, and
I've
then
always
you
wondered, for example, why in dreams you very rarely hear dialogue. What you're seeing all the time are images.
mhm,
So that kind of tells me that that is the language of psychological or spiritual communication. It's
yes,
images. And the other thing you touched on is the difference between guidance and free will. You know, after all, we can decide what to do. We're not
mhm.
puppets. But it's like I always thought of it as like going to the beach. Now you can go to the beach anytime you want, but it's always better on a sunny day.
Yeah, yeah.
You go in the middle of a rainstorm and well, you're still at the beach, but it's not going to be the same experience. It won't be as easy.
It won't be as easy. It'll be very windy, and you're definitely get your clothes. You're definitely gonna be soaked, not
Yeah,
even touching the water.
yeah. Well, that's very nice. Uh, when people come to you for a reading, you said you feel their energy, and then you now.
Yeah, I look at the focal points. I look at what's going on. I'm getting a better understanding of how the energy moves
Right.
through the body. The heart, the mind, intestines. And the more I learn about the intestines and do my own studies, I realize there's a
Uh,
lot of wild things that's connected, that's related. For example, the lymph nodes. Everyone understands the lymph nodes connected to your gut, to your immunity, but it's
right.
also where your white blood cells are connected or made.
Yes.
So when your white blood cells are made from your lymph nodes and it's not being, something's going on, something's not
Mm,
being properly set, they could sometimes attack you. So that's where, for example, lupus, which is a very aggressive autoimmune disease, and
right.
one of the biggest factors that gets affected is your lymph nodes because the white blood cells also starts attacking you, which is no one likes that. And it's never good, and they couldn't really find a cure for it.
Well,
So
in the ancient Chinese medicine, of course, the energy has to be balanced. Otherwise, the body is going to start to get out of balance, and then that'll lead to disease.
yeah, stress is like one of the biggest factors that creates disease. That is like the driver. The more stress a person is experiencing in their life,
Right.
uh, the more the disease will start festering and become like a tumor, which no one wants that. And it's becoming apparent when we are disconnected, we really only gravitate to what we physically know. So
Oh, you mean
once,
those people out there living on the street in their RVs with no responsibilities and smoking the ganja and without nothing to worry about are going to outlive me? Wow. You know, that's upside down world we live in, isn't it?
it's different times, different ways.
Well, that's amazing. I was also going to ask you, uh, how do you feel about lately? Do you think there's been any, like in the last year or so, major energetic changes collectively for all of us on this earth that
Yeah,
you
you
point
can
at?
definitely how it's shown visually is different. Because things usually happen on the other side faster. So what we call the other side, or what people will known it as heaven.
Ah,
It's just simply, the other side. And when things happen on that side, then it'll happen on the physical side. And a lot of especially in the last couple months, there's been a lot of actual movement towards a lot of animals going. And you've been seeing there was recently they gave a report that in Alaska the
yes.
crab population is gone. 90% of the crab population is
Wow.
gone.
And
And this is a
they say it's things like bird flu or a
yeah,
viral
yeah.
infection, but
Yeah,
that's just the physical manifestation of an energetic uh,
movement. Yeah.
movement. I see.
Yeah, yeah. Something things that are happening. So everyone knows that going back on them with the crabs and the
Yes.
Alaskan crabs, 90% of them are gone, and they don't know what that is. And
Mm.
energetically, it's actually really the bacteria. What we were spoke about is tapping itself. So it's almost like a painless death, and
Ah,
essentially they go home without any pain,
right.
and so they just gone. And then another big animal death was birds. There's birds in the
Wow.
U.S. There was about 50 million birds. They finally started giving a proper report that
Ah,
50 million birds in the U.S. has gone are gone. And so it's just one thing after another. There's a huge whale. Whales are beaching themselves in Australia. That
hmm.
was a big deal. That's something that's on one energetic sphere that's happening. Um,
Well, you can bet they're going to try to politicize that and call it global warming.
yeah, and that's what that was officially. That is something. I don't know how the proper way to say it. I will just say nefarious means it.
Yes.
Uh, if they if they in any way can have control of the way words are being produced to people, if they
Yes.
can control that aspect of how they say, then
Yes.
they know, oh, it's we are doing this and this and this and this. When in reality, it's they have no control of it, and it's just the other side taking the animals home
I
because they've
spent
been
I spend a lot of my time making videos discussing the very point that it's our minds that matter, not the facts, because the facts follow from what we're thinking, from
yeah,
what we're intending. We create the facts collectively, and maybe there's other minds that may not be necessarily incarnate who are also creating the facts mentally and with intent.
of
So
course.
if you can control what people are thinking, you can control reality. Would you say that it also works the other way? That if I have the intention of doing something physical, like let's say I'm going to do some, set up some rocks in a little circle and maybe go sacrifice some, chickens or something and do some physical manipulation, will that in turn create an energetic reverberation?
Does the years, millions of years, and all the sacrifices that's happened,
Hmm.
physical rituals, it was a way to actually create a quote unquote message. And that message was because nothing physical can really change metaphysically. The only thing metaphysically is the other way around. Metaphysically, things can be changed to the physical. So if there's a physical ritual that is happening, they're sending a message to a spirit who are, it's like, oh, okay. So if
Uh-huh.
so essentially the spirit understands that if they are this ritual is related to them, they will do these things for them, but they gotta wait and for these sacrifices. But
Right.
those type of spirits are not, they're bad spirit, what you say bad spirits, because all they care about is the the abuse. And the fact that you did that abuse will means, oh, okay, now I'll do it. But before, if it was a good
Yes.
person, would never really want that. Because one, it's sacrificing the chicken, all of a sudden, boom, that's abusive. But in their minds, in the ritual, it's a spell, it's
Yes.
a message, it's an energetic change, transformation that they are believing. But
Now,
it's,
that's a negative example. I just wanted to start with that. What about
yeah.
a positive example of the same
So
process?
positive examples are usually when you're not doing the quote unquote sacrifices, but it's a routine. Your routine is could be
Like
a ritual.
prayer of many types,
Yeah,
sometimes
a
prayer.
prayer of course of many types. There is an energy that comes when we actually, it's like a soft yellow energy that comes with prayer, but
Yes.
it's really, really it's just saying it's this is another way of saying a message to the spirit that's,
Got it.
oh yeah, yeah. So essentially soft rituals will be you will be called routines for coffee in the morning when you wake up. Or some people like the first thing they drink is maybe,
What
yeah.
kind of spirit is involved here? Oh my God, I gotta be careful. Gee,
Well, it's a simple thing because if you really look at it, coffee comes from the earth,
right.
and the coffee that comes from the earth comes from is everyone understands it's Gaia, it's the mother,
So I'm
and so
connecting with the products of the planet, of the earth.
yeah, you're connecting with the physical energy,
Right.
because it's all particulate matter. All this physical stuff is particulate matter, but
Yeah.
when there's something with the body that goes into your body, it has a strong change energetically. So when it's something related to an energetic uh physical thing, it will actually allow you to, have a feel, you feel good. You drink that coffee. You know that coffee will actually get you going, get you strong, be able to do the things you need to do that day. So you have that every morning. So it
So
becomes,
I like to think that the coffee sharpens me up a little bit, gives me a little bit of an intellectual edge so that I can engage in, difficult, complex subjects such as talking with yourself, and make a more sense of the world. And then of course I think about the people I met the other day. They like to get up in the morning with a couple of beer and have a nice buzz on.
yeah.
Now, what kind of mind are they creating for themselves every day?
It's a simple thing as allowing themselves to relax. Um, once something's done, you are relaxed. And everyone wants, and that's the hardest thing in this society is to relax. We're always trying to find something. So rituals and routines, anything that's related to energetic change or energetic give and take,
Right.
um, it's mainly once it's done, you're finally be able to relax and not have to worry about it. And you can move on to the next thing. My dad will always say, "What's next?" And it's about constant movement. So people do get out of it energetically a calming frequency. The frequency starts calming down. It
Right.
isn't as erratic. So
Right.
as the frequency starts calming down, they are able to focus on it. So that's why there's a lot of, food is important because the
Yeah.
body is connected with food.
Why do they
And
call it soul food?
yeah, that's why they call it soul food. And that's why in a lot of rituals, they always bring food.
Ah,
into part of the rituals because it's connected to the earth, and it's an energetic healing to our body. Our body needs it. So we usually put the core values of what we understand as a spirit and body in the physical realm, and what's important to that body has a very strong connection to their life. And what's important in their life will have a strong connection to how, if they want water to happen, they want it to rain, well, they bring these things as offerings. But it it was a way for them to communicate. It's want to go to Stone Age. But as you become more understanding of the other side and connecting with your spirit guides, you start realizing that a lot of it is just really it's just how things are controlled. You don't have not only 90%, 95% of what you think you have control, you don't have control. You only control about 5% of your
well,
what you're
I
doing.
live in an area here on the West Coast where there's a lot of First Nations tribes, and those people practice this kind of ritual as part of their traditional lifestyle.
Yeah,
And for example, before going fishing, they would make a special dance, and they would wear a mask, a wooden mask in the shape of a salmon, and they would consume not just the salmon itself, but also the oil of the salmon, concentrated essence,
yeah.
and they'd even burn salmon oil in a kind of candle to make an incense smell, which, by the way, doesn't smell very good to me. But I've
Mhm.
experienced that as a child, and that was the ritual that they would do before going fishing, to attract the fish to their net.
Yeah, it was a way of their understanding that okay, if we it's like trial and error. So like if they do a certain ritual a certain way, if it's something doesn't happen, then that doesn't happen. So they change it until they get to
Right.
where it happens. In my understanding, energetically, it was just a way to, it was a bit abusive because it is still a sacrifice. I
Yeah.
understand that it's how their way of life. I understand
Yes.
that it's been around for years, hundreds of years.
People say the cave paintings from 100,000 years ago in France are another way to communicate with those animals before you hunt them so that they'll
Yeah,
be available to you, and it might not be it might actually be a mutual communication. In other words, when you're a hunter gatherer
yeah,
and as for your sustenance, it's done with permission.
of course. And especially with the cave paintings, I'm actually kind of looking at it a bit. It was a lot about communication, passing down knowledge, because a
Yes.
lot of the stuff that happened during those times was catastrophic. A lot of big catastrophic uh, events happen.
Right.
It's like quote unquote the floods, the great floods. People, for example, Graham Hancock, who speak of the great floods that happened,
Yes.
and that is so large that it's literally covers half the continent.
Wow.
So, and it's just um the cave paintings was a way to give people a new it's like, okay, well, you have forgotten certain things. We don't want you to forget these techniques and these animals that would
Ah.
help us survive.
Yes.
So the cave painting was a way to give wisdom and move on. It was an
Right.
ancient way. And even the knowledge of using the type of clay, the type of earth and
Yes.
materials to keep that painting there for hundreds of thousands of years,
Yes.
millions of years. It's been
Yes.
there for a long time. And he's like, well, painting has a long history in society. It has it's part of the arts, and it stays around for a long time. So it's an imprint. It's an energetic imprint that you place.
It's like
That
a rune.
yeah, it's exactly like a room. So this one right here is
Ooh,
about opening
that's
up.
getting me right here. That's getting me
Yeah,
right
it's
here.
literally about opening up your scanner
Oh
and then
yeah.
open up your scanner and then open up your pinot. It allows you to
That's
see.
making me think that one.
Yeah, yeah, because you're actually actively or flexing your energetic muscle, your energetic scanner, just feel what's going on. And so
Yes.
when you're metaphysically seeing, it's your solar plexus and your scanner coming together. And that allows you to actually not only see what's going on, or quote unquote astral project back in time.
Well, I'll
And you
tell you,
can
I'm
also
not. I'm not particularly sensitive, okay? But when you showed that one a minute ago with the unicorn and the dragon,
yeah,
I actually felt wobbling.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
I really I feel some movement.
a
It's
lot of movement.
it's
Yeah.
movement. It's moving that, you know. And
It's just it's a strong aggressive change, and you actually feel it because for you, I think even JR was even mentioned it to you, I think, but
yeah,
it's similar to just when you're, especially when there's mainly solar plexus, you're able to physically feel something. When it's you actually feel it, even though you have the ability to understand things at a deep level,
yes,
when it something so strong and it allows you to feel it, that's a big change. And
yes.
that's what this is about, is that big change. So which is soon to happen. And it's a positive thing. So, different people feel different things. It's just different focal points are just stronger. For example, you probably will love um oh wow, Pythagoras. Um
Pythagoras.
yeah, in his life in that
I
time.
have no doubt that I was a member of that school at one time.
That's good because you really connected with him and the school. And it's been about the physical representation of
Yes.
life and geometry and how that affects with life. It's our DNA. Because they show the DNA and people don't realize, obviously, the strand that goes down. But if you look at top overview, you
Ah,
start understanding that, oh, there's not only just these strands, there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of millions of different streams within your DNA that shows of how things as the memories from the past, which is why I believe I'm trying to remember. It was the Hopi Indians.
right.
Um, their body, energetic body, is part of a group, one of the first groups of people who
Mhm.
came to Earth,
Huh.
became bond with Mother Gaia and spirit connecting in the bodies.
Uh-huh.
And it was known as the Red Race. Well,
Ah.
that energetic genetics of that body is super, super strong because the spirit, the original that created it, it was just a very strong spirit. And
Well,
so
that's
when you
why
have,
bloodlines are so important to the Nefarious
yeah, wow,
because
that's,
they carry these bad or negative practices through their genetics. Just
yeah.
and I like to just point that out because to really understand the world, you have to see that there's the same thing is going on, whether it's being used positively or negatively.
Course. So that's why, like, for any genetic mutation that only comes from a certain bloodline, is
Right.
because something that happened within that family is they decided, instead of spreading out, they decided to stay within and preserve themselves and try to be as pure as they can. They start having problems because it's not bringing in new genetic material. They're only bringing in their own genetic material, which doesn't evolve.
You get
And that's
hemophilia or large distorted chins or something if you're a European royal trying to keep your bloodline pure and marrying your
yeah.
cousins for generations. It's ridiculous. And of course, the Egyptian pharaohs even tried to do it within their own families with their
That was
sisters.
a lot. That was a big deal. And I remember even just looking at it a few times energetically, and I was like, wow, it was a huge deal. They've been wanting to keep it here for a while
It's
because it
not.
was just
That's
it's
a
it's
distortion.
yeah, it's a distortion. And actually what makes it stronger, the body energetically stronger, is being able to connect to the right genetic code that
Right.
allows you to actually evolve and get stronger. Your senses,
It's diversity, man. The more parts you
yeah.
have to your puzzle, the more powerful you are.
And that's why everyone, let's go into the ET abductions in the past. Everyone always
Ah,
always there's usually always the case it was a genetic change. They come in, they took my DNA and they changed it, something else happened. And it's always the case because, well, they're much smarter than us about understanding the DNA. Why would they even go and actually even decide to go take people come back? And then one of the biggest things, or first things they say, is that my DNA has changed. Or well, that could be wrong. Not that DNA was changed, but DNA was altered.
aha.
So that altering, that splicing, that understanding how that is being done is, well, what else have they done?
No, but if it was with positive intent, then it would
Yeah,
create a benefit
yeah,
to us
removal.
intellectually or spiritually somehow, so that we would be able to communicate more perfectly.
Yeah, yeah. This is actually going into during one of the first earlier times, everyone understands Lemuria. Around the time of Lemuria, there was a groups of ETs that will come in and will, start, it's almost like staying the night at somebody's house. They slept over, but when they slept over, they're sleeping over for hundreds of years. So
Right.
they're coming back and you have communication, but they're spending time. But you got to, they're not used to the earth. So as they were getting the bodies and the genetics and it's increasing their population, um, they understood DNA and they understood the removal of anything that was a disease that allows them their spirit be able to use more of its energy and able to evolve the body even more.
Absolutely. And there's one thing I'd like to just interject. A lot of people have very little understanding of what an ET is or the whole situation about that. And I always just say it like this. Um, if you got to look at the big picture, not just here on Earth, just think of us as a village. We're just one village, and this is not the country. It's not the world. And ET are not very different from us any more than we are very different from an Aboriginal, or I am different from you. You know, for example, in ancient China, if a woman wanted to get married, she was not allowed to marry someone from within her own village. She had to seek a husband far away as possible. And
Oh,
there was rituals for that, and there was permissions. Like, you know, a woman would be, actually it was the man that would be traveling to find the bride, because in those days the women had to stay at home. But the
yeah,
point
yeah.
is that the genetic material was never allowed to be, self communicating within a closed system. It had to have
Self-propagating.
outside influence. Now, if you see us here on Earth as a village, living within a cosmos full of diversity, you have to demand that we would have some kind of outside influence. Otherwise, we're just going to stagnate and de-evolve rather than evolve.
Of course. And it's just patterns. It always goes back to the patterns in society, how that it really affects. And people start understanding their own selves. And as the more they understand their own selves, they start realizing, oh, well, the practice that we used to do, if it just falls away. And there's more understanding
Yes.
that allows them that collection of is, for example, the number eight. Everyone understands the eight, it's the infinity symbol. It's an
Yes.
internal.
Turned on its
Yeah,
head.
yeah. So if you actually understand that it's going
Yes.
like this, it's going around, it's understanding on one side, going back to the middle, and then boom, it goes to the other side. And it's that constant change, it's that constant
Intersects in the middle.
intersection, is that connection, and that connection is that data. And you get that data from after that one loop, you go back to the middle. Oh, hello, that's right. There's something that happened over here.
Aha.
Okay, now I know how this works. Okay, let me go back to the other side. And it's a new understanding. Let's go back. And that constant change is that internal. It's always going, it's always going to happen.
That's a
So
beautiful analogy. That Pythagorean would like that.
yeah, indeed. And then once you move on to its data and understanding, which is representative of number eight, you move on to the number nine. And the number nine is a understanding of wisdom and using your wisdom.
Yes.
So that's the difference between eight and nine. Eight is, being a hermit, being within yourself. And then once you hit that nine, then that hermit now is venturing out into the storm, moving onwards. And just he or she understands how to move through that storm, how to use the tools, because now they understand through many experiences of the collection of those understandings, they have a completion.
Numbers are energetic runes in themselves, aren't they?
Of course. So it's a very, very simple thing. And we tend to make it complicated. And often not, it is complicated, but it's simple once you understand it.
Back to DNA for a second. You know, I believe that our education systems are not very educational. I think they're more manipulative and you know, attempting to blind us more than anything else. And I'll give a good example. For a long time, people have been denying that there's any kind of genetic memory that's passed on from a parent to a child. Now, by genetic memory, I don't mean physical. Of course, physical traits are passed on, like the color of your eyes or hair, or maybe a defect in your heart, if it's a negative problem. But the concept of experiences, or knowledge, or wisdom, or inclinations being passed on was always denied by science, especially since Darwin, who was a Mason, by the way. And
Mhm.
you know, and why are they doing that? Because lately it's been proven that, for example, the monarch butterfly, you know, that they migrate over huge distances,
Yes.
seasonally. But the problem with the monarch butterfly is they don't live very long,
No, they
and
don't.
the migration takes several months. But the lifespan of the individual butterfly is only a week or two. So they die off before they reach their goal. So how could they possibly know where they're going? And they don't have any guide from last year because that generation died off thousands of generations ago. So how could they possibly know where they're going? And how would they possibly know how to get back if there's no individual life long enough to make that journey? Well, there must be within its DNA some kind of map or GPS coordinate or some
Yeah.
kind of energetic guidance system that's being passed down. There's no other possible explanation.
It's the especially butterflies, they actually um are controlled mainly from the other side.
Right.
So, but if you actually look at it genetically, the mapping, yes, they understand the Earth frequency because we can't forget we always gonna keep going back to energy. Energy is also a representation of genetics in your DNA,
Yes.
and it's at a superstition that is at a state of matter that is very, very connected to the earth. And
Let's
so
say
that connection with the earth is like a magnet. And so as
yes.
your magnet, they actually sense that. They sense the actual colors is much more expanded.
I
They're
want to
on this,
rephrase a little bit. They're not getting the map in their DNA. They're getting the Wi-Fi antenna to receive the map.
yeah, yeah. And they're having that constant communication with Gaia,
Got it.
Mother
Yeah.
Earth. And that constant communication allows them to actually go. And this connection has been going on for millions of years.
Yes.
Butterflies are very old. A lot of spirits can go in, make some changes, but it really is a understanding between two people. And that is a it's not the same as a person being a body, but if it's all these bugs, all these butterflies, all these different types of spiders, um they are literally from Gaia. They're part of her, and
Yes.
that constant communication is part of her is in these
Our
butterflies.
our bodies are, and there's some traditions
Yeah, yeah,
when you
and
when you
it's
pass away, they don't want you to sit in the ground in a little box. They want you to be recycled back into the environment as
yeah,
quickly as possible.
that's why I understand cremation better than just putting your body in a casket and putting it in the ground. You're just sitting like your body's just sitting in the casket, and at the end of the day, it's not
I
going to.
like I like getting chucked into the ocean. I mean, you want to
Yeah,
get real
right.
man,
Just
that'll do it real quick.
like it's faster. It's ready. I'm ready. My body's in the ocean, and it's like it is what it
And
is.
it's more beneficial because you're putting nutrition right back into the fit into the
Yes,
fish and the
yeah.
algae.
It's a cycle. It's the birth. And it's the birth. It's the death and rebirth,
It's
and
cheaper too.
it's yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely. It's a understanding that eventually, once people start coming around to understand that communication with Mother Earth and understanding how life has run itself. I mean, nature has run itself because it's in constant communication. How we are in people, we're in constant communication is how we run ourselves. But once we are to, to evolve, this requires change, requires perspective. Perspective. perspective.
Would you agree that there has been influence upon us, impelling us to run against nature in many ways, in the destruction of our habitat, in in creating imbalance within our connection with other species,
Yeah.
causing their extinction or causing their abuse. Would
Yeah.
you agree that we've been manipulated to do that for a long time, and that perhaps that manipulation is over, and that we're about to enter a period of harmony?
Harmony, which is funny because I was actually looking at that rune earlier. Excuse me.
Hold it up, please.
This is harmony. And I was looking at it, I was like, why is this one important? And yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
yeah. So
Bring it
I was
on.
surprised that you said it. I was like, oh, I knew that card's gonna come back up.
Don't be surprised, Walker.
I at this point, I just laugh because it's realizing the communication with your guys and how you could be saying certain things, and then they have you, they show you an image or guide you to a card, and it's that original symbol. The symbols is always going to be a form of communication that is a thousand words.
Yeah.
So, but it's what within those thousand words, the meaning really comes through. And harmony is a very, very soft and hard understanding. It's literally it's your energy just like a Taurus, not Taurus, but it's kind of similar.
Well,
And it's that constant
yeah,
change.
one of the strongest feelings that we have is physical attraction to the opposite sex, for example, or what we call love, which I define as a spiritual attraction to the opposite sex
Mhm.
or the same sex, depending on
It's
what we want.
the frequencies of love has always had
It's
created
got
a
to be
change.
fitting some kind of harmonic frequency that happens to be you at your particular period in your life, which
Not
could change, and that's why people fall out of love, isn't it? Because one of them
mm,
changed.
yeah.
And
And you know, here's the thing. I eventually I learned that it made a lot of sense why a lot of relationships don't work out sometimes. It's disheartening. Um, most every person's spirit mate is actually on the other side. It's separated. So one half goes onto a planet that have a life, and the other half is on the other
to
side.
help the other.
Yeah. So to help the other, of course. But when we are having relationships that's not our sphere mate, there's going to be problems, and everyone's this is always like even when I before I started to become more awake, I was like, oh, you meet your soulmate, and there's different people. They all like 4 or 5 soulmates. Yes, they probably have previous lives. You
Right.
have previous lives with them that allows you to that love really is connected, it's really developed, it's in there. But it's not your other half, and so there are going to be problems that arise, and that's why you know you have to let go of finding a spirit mate and just connect, just be with who you love. And
Well,
that's
I don't know how much romance we can bring into the discussion, but I've always thought of exclusive focus on finding something from someone else to be a selfish endeavor. Because instead of expressing need, what we should express is beneficence, uh, doing something to help others, because that's the way the universe works.
mhm.
When you work for the benefit of another, instead of just looking to them to see what they can provide you, then it seems that that sets up an energetic rebound effect, where what you give comes back, and it usually comes back far more at a far higher amplitude, shall we
Mhm.
say, than the energy that you put out. So if you really want to get something out of life, give a little,
Give it a little.
you get a lot.
Yes, indeed. It's positive karma, and that is something that it's just everyone understands. Like no one wants bad karma. It's again
And of
karma's
course,
a
that's
beat.
what all my girlfriends say. Oh, you're such a generous lover.
Oh wow, yeah, it's a yeah. I'm with you in that understanding. It's a very simple thing. It's like you understand it in your own way, in your experiences that you have. And it has really allowed you to open up and actually be able to communicate more. It's like this right here, this X right
Uh,
here. It's called Gibu,
that,
Gebo, and it's about
I, that's
connection with
that's
others.
that's interesting. It's kind of like making a stop.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of making it stop because it's forcing you to connect with someone. It's forcing you to realize, oh, you made a connection. Then it's like, oh, what's going on? What's happening? And then once you understand that communication, then you realize, oh, okay, I can relax and really move on and evolve more. And it's really a matter of a simple, it's just connection, understandings. For example, everyone understands the unicorn, and the unicorn is about purity, but it attacks anything that's negative because it doesn't like negativity. So once the negativity is removed, then there's understanding. And
Right.
it's always been about understanding. It's patient. It
Yeah.
wants, it communicates with you. So it's a very, very compassion, love comes from that. And it's gonna be very, for example, your shirt is red, right?
Right.
That's actually the colors of your heart. It's the
Right.
colors of your energy that is of love that it comes from deep in there.
Well, the amazing thing is, I had two shirts in my hand this morning.
Hmm.
One was blue and one was red.
Yeah.
You got the blue, right?
Yeah. I was taking shirts. I had a red shirt, and
Oh,
then
there you go.
I was about to wear that one.
No
Then I was like,
accidents, Walker. No accidents.
no access. Well, simply I was like, I needed to be a little bit brighter so the lighting could be seen. That's why we're a
Yeah.
little bit brighter
Yeah.
shirt. But then I like my little lime little
Oh, we're just a crazy contrast. Look at me. I'm all white hair. You're dark hair, black hair. It's nuts. It's
it's
nuts.
wild. It's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. And that's the way we want it, isn't it?
Yeah, just as long as you're being yourself, it will always the things that happen in your life will be, positive karma. Just be you. And that's something that is really a simple thing because it's also saying relax. And when we hear that word, it's like, oh no, I don't want to relax. I got stuff going on. No, no, 5 minutes, relax.
Relax and rest is two different things.
Yes. Rest is like the quote unquote there's a card in the tarot called Four of Swords. And usually it's an image of a lady sleeping. She has her bed, have covers over her, she's
Right.
resting, and there's four swords.
Right.
And swords also could be about, air, is the air movement cutting through the air, but it's also a physical representation of a solid.
Yeah.
And the Four Swords has always been known about rest. Not worry about anything, just take a break.
Yeah.
But when you relax, your frequencies will start. Your frequency starts going like this.
Yes.
It starts when you relax. It starts going, slows down, and then you can actually feel into it. And as you feel into it, that allows you to actually understand. So there is two different things, but it still comes from the same source. And that source is really who you are energetically. And they're always going to keep coming back to that.
Well, I believe that when we relax, some people call it meditation, you're opening yourself
Of
more
course.
directly to receiving and understanding the information that's all around us. That's just a little bit above and a little bit behind.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you can reach up there and you can grab it anytime you want. It's we don't need anything else. We've got it with us all the time. It's just a matter of becoming aware. And I do believe that naturally we would be aware if it wasn't the fact that we are being suppressed. We are being contained.
Oh,
And, and
metaphysical dud.
metaphysically, I'm talking about, not
Yeah,
just
metaphysically, like
us.
metaphysically a dud. Like like a not like yeah. It's just nothing is going on. Nothing
For a
is happening.
long, long time. And I get the feeling that those chains are being lifted and
Mhm.
broken. And people talk about things like the Schumann resonance or something, or the background energy of the planet itself rising. But I do really feel it's almost like being in a housing complex where you got really bad neighbors who are horribly abusive and they're doing negative things, and then one day they get arrested or they move and they're no longer there. And you never saw because there was always a wall, but you sure felt it. And I'm feeling that they're gone.
In the past couple days, literally the past 2 to 4 days, my energy, it's just been clear. Like I've been able to, s- mm, my metaphysical vision has been much clearer. I've been able to actually see the images much crisp,
Right.
and I kind of feel like the energy, the field is getting like stronger, and I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. I can actually see what's going on because before, as I was doing my readings, I was able to see what's going on into the images that my spirit guides give me. But now it's just much more. It's faster. It's much more expanded,
Right.
and it's really allowed me to communicate better. And these past couple of days have been interesting. Actually, yesterday,
My friend Frank says the same thing.
of course, yeah, I believe yesterday in Mount Mauna
Uh-huh.
Loa, the volcano,
Oh yes, it blew its top.
first time in 40 years, and the skies were completely red.
I don't know
And
whether that's good or bad. It was certainly a change.
well, maybe, maybe. Is it good as a bad? Maybe.
Uh-huh.
The most important thing is it happened. It
Yeah,
already happened. It is what it is.
yeah,
So the important thing is, well, if you got it, you want to be prepared, be prepared.
right.
And if you feel the energy and you feel like it's gonna be fine, then it's gonna be fine. So it's a it's a it's a more of a sign that things are finally starting to happen. The big change I was talking about, physical aggressive change.
Above, so below.
Yeah. It's yeah, you it's above or below. 'Cause I remember when I first learned about that. It's
Above, so below is what you were saying. First, there's the energetic change, and that affects
Yeah, and then goes down to
physical.
below. It's a good way to look at it because it does help you realize that it takes time for the change to happen, but it also means that there's a difference in the dimensions that goes from one dimension to the other.
Yeah,
So yeah, when physical change that's happening on the earth, the animals going,
right.
then the volcanoes, like all the volcanoes around the Ring of Fire is now all much more active. Um, there is a earthquake. I think I counted about 30 earthquakes. When the eruption hit, about
Yeah.
30 earthquakes around 2.6. But 2.6 to 3.0 went off all at the same time.
Right. Well, they say the meek will inherit the earth. I bet I got to go get myself an RV. I mean, those people can move on a dime, right?
Yeah, they go, oh, okay, well, let's go.
Yeah, or just take off, and those people in their giant mansions with their millions of dollars, they're not going to make it, baby.
Uh-huh. There it goes. Like, oh, forget about that. Let's keep going.
A
Oh
lot
yeah.
of those people lost their jobs because they were not going for the negative
Yeah.
DNA effect. Like I'm not going to mention those words because I don't want to get banned. But
Mhm.
we've talked about the positive DNA influence on our race or on the human species. Now, what about those who would like to do a negative DNA alteration? And how might you suck people into going through that process? Now, when that started a few years ago, I saw it immediately. A lot of us saw it immediately for what that agenda truly was. And guess what? A lot of us have lost our jobs. A lot of us have ended up living on the street. And because we'd rather die than have ourselves polluted
Mhm.
like that.
Once you get to that point, um, once you get to the point that you've been abused enough and you really
Yeah,
you rather die than to experience this again,
that's right.
uh, there's going to be a large influx of people really moving away from what we thought was normal. Because
Exactly.
we're not normal people. We're not normal beings. It's just not normal to be stuck in an apartment that it's making you pay an insane amount of money. the
Yes.
food that you eat that you think is healthy, in reality, only about maybe 5%, 10% of it is actually nutritionally healthy.
You got
Even
if
if
it comes in a box, it's you're going to end up in a box.
worse.
You know what I mean?
And yeah, yeah, yeah.
You got to go to
Oh
the
yeah,
farm and
yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah.
natural food. You got to go. It processed, forget it. You got to
Right,
go and get
right.
the basic food.
And then and then going with that, it's just like a lot of people gets worried about one thing that happens for food. So, oh, you must start making gardens. Well, it's good that you have land, you have some garden, but not
Yes,
everyone has that access to land or be able to garden.
right.
So it's a give or take. Um, the free will, you always have your free will. You've just been led to believe that you don't. The
Yes,
thing is that you have to unlearn what you thought how to grow vegetables. Just maybe you have to learn a new way.
right.
Hydroponics was a big deal. You can do that with water. And you may not need soil, but it's a temporary relief and it allows you to travel.
Well, it's education. I remember when I was a little kid, they were teaching us in grade one how to grow stuff on the windowsill. What happened to that? Now, nope.
I remember that too. We used to get the egg cartons and
Yeah,
we used to put like seeds. Usually it was
yeah.
green beans and like tomatoes. And we always put them on the window seals and then they stopped teaching that. They just like, oh no, don't worry about that.
With me, it was bean sprouts and I think it was carrots.
Carrots.
Yeah, but
Oh,
anyway, the point is that that was part of education.
mm-hmm.
But now it's like, oh, we don't want you to get the classroom dirty. What? Oh, there might
Ah,
be an accident. What? Oh, can't. Oh, there might be a bug growing in there. What? This is the kind of distortion that we've been inflicted with, and we have to get back to the basics of what we need in order to live properly. In
yeah. And so, and it's those basics that they're taking away, and it's a simple thing like take removal of learning how to grow on your windowsill.
Yes,
Now there's a generation of kids who only understand food that comes from the store. They don't understand that oh, you can actually grow it on the side of the road, or even in your RV, you can do that. It's a technique that you understand, but once that's gone, it's
yeah,
gone from a whole generation. And then they have to find a new way, and then it's just it's a factor. I think there was another one that they did. Um, I don't know how I don't want to get banned, but it's like I'm trying to say it properly. It's like in education school books,
hmm,
the removal of particular information about you know tribes or how an invention was created and that has been removed, and then everyone understands the victor when always writes history,
yeah.
and that history other history can be wiped away. And nowadays I remember some of the stuff that they used to teach. Now they don't even, it's all on
Yes.
iPads, it's easily be removed. Now it's like, oh, it's a physical thing. You can open the book, it's there, but they have to physically remove it, and that's what was a pain. But now they got the iPads. It's
Much easier to
much
scrub.
easier. Oh yeah, you don't have to worry about that. It's still gone.
That's shocking to me, and I'm from my perspective as an English teacher, I was shocked at what they did to George Orwell's 1984. That's been basically removed from the curriculum.
Really?
They used to always teach it in
What?
grade 11 or 12. You probably
Yeah, yeah.
remember yourself having to read that book. Well, that book, when I was young, I thought that's just a fantasy world that they're talking about. None of that could possibly be true or happening. And then as I got older, I realized that he was just describing. He
Hmm.
wasn't inventing. He was just describing. It's all a metaphor. And then I suddenly saw it disappear. It's not taught anymore. And I'm going, what kind of an agenda is this? They don't want students to think about the concepts of things like newspeak,
Hmm.
or the Ministry of Truth,
Hmm.
or what we call today fake news,
Yeah.
or any of those concepts which are in that book, spelled out in black and white. and all of a sudden that information is taken away, and it leaves a whole generation of young people defenseless. They don't have the concepts to fight against the manipulation anymore.
And then on the progressive side of it, they would look at it as, well, we don't those books was you don't need to have those books in. It's like you don't need to remember it. But the important thing is like the past is the past and you have to move on. But it doesn't mean you can forget what was done. You can forgive and move on, but don't forget the important reasons why the negative things that happen and why that happened.
And they're confusing what happened with the concepts behind them. The
Yeah.
concepts never change. The actions might change. We might have, burning at the stake instead of getting canceled. You know,
Mhm.
we might have a different action, but the concept's the same.
Of course. And it's a sad thing because in 1984, when I reached, it was one of the few books where I actually would, it made me physically sick.
Oh
I
yeah,
I actually made me physically sick.
it
I
scared the
remember reading,
bejesus out
right?
of me for a long time. I thought about that room with the rats. Oh my God, you know.
It was terrible. I was like, this is strange because when they were speak, there was a scene in the book,
Yeah.
man, when they were in the room, and they were, I'm trying to remember because it was very brutal because
I
they
think it
kept
was
them in
room 101, wasn't it?
yeah, it was Room 101, and they were, asking you the questions, but you have to answer the right questions.
2 + 2 =
Yeah.
No, it's not 4. You get punished for that. You get
It's
punished
like
for
it's
that.
10, but it's not what you think it is. And it's part of the newsfeed. And it's subliminal. It's a
Yes.
very subliminal thing because subliminal is an energetic it's almost like a white yellowish. It's mostly like a white energy.
That's
It's
right.
very pure, but it is a high frequency. So when I say subliminal, I'm talking about when they're speaking in the news and within the news channels, they're saying what they're saying, but they understand the
Mm,
section of the words they speak. And so the energy that's behind that, you feel that. And
yeah.
that's what's coming in your head. It's like that movie Obey.
Ah,
And behind the scenes, the dimension they looked into and realized, oh, this is what the subliminal energy is being pushed to. And that is what they're really saying, but they're saying it energetic. They're feeling it, but they're saying a certain way.
I make a
So
lot of videos about that too. And the concept here is magic, isn't it? It's magic is what they're practicing upon our consciousness, and the wand. The magic wand is the media.
yeah, it's the words. Everyone understands that spelling. It goes back in spelling. You're
That's right.
putting a spell on someone.
Yeah. And
Uh,
1984 was a talisman
mhm.
against that kind of control. And if you read that book, it built up a certain amount of defense mechanism within you
Yeah,
so that you were able to resist that. And when as soon as they took that away, I'm going, oh my God, what are they planning?
it's never like I didn't. This is news to me that they took away in 1984.
Gone. It, it,
It's
it disappeared around 8, 9, 10 years ago.
I remember learning about that in class too. What's
Yep,
next? What's next? Macbeth? What's next?
exactly.
Shakespeare?
Exactly.
Shakespeare?
I
What's
agree with you,
next?
man. Macbeth is a beautiful example of how a book from a play from 500 years ago is still teaching the basic concepts of the dangers of revenge, the dangers of greed and ambition, the
Hmm.
dangers of sacrificing love of someone else for your own benefit. All of those psychological concepts are in Shakespeare's plays. And when they start removing those and replacing them with a story about some person who feels they were threatened because they made a choice about their gender that's not exactly what they see in the mirror every morning, and therefore they're living in an abusive world, and they feel so under such great pressure and hardship that they have to go and spend $70,000 on a medical procedure. And after that, they feel so much better and they're able to live in the world.
Hmm.
Huh?
What's interesting with that is that you look at it energetically, there is a percentage of a male and female. It could be one mostly male or one mostly female. So that is always going to be there. But when they're put in a body that's opposite of who they mainly are, that could creates the problem. But that doesn't mean what they're pushing and saying, pay all this money and do all
Exactly.
these things. That is completely
On children under the age of 12.
of course.
It's
And
not the concept itself. We have free will in this planet.
yeah,
It's the what's the word? It's the way that it's indoctrinated into young people in order to confuse them, and the actual result is a benefit to a multinational medical hospital.
because all they care about is themselves. And so if they can make a group of people follow a change, I actually remember just word for it. I'm gonna try to say it again. It's because I remember I was watching some articles, and there was
Right.
something related to how the actual money. I gotta be careful.
Uh-huh.
Dang it, I can't.
Well, that's
Like,
okay. I got to be real careful with words too. But I see it as
yeah,
a form of reversal.
yeah.
It's
It's
a
a
kind of
reversal.
a black to white reversal where you take everything, and we're gonna use the Satanism word here because I think I can safely do that, and that's the concept. The concept is to take everything and reverse it energetically.
It's the male and female, and being the male and female in body,
Yeah.
and physically, because like what of course I'm saying, the image is usually always, you see the female enemy and then you see the male enemy all in
Yes.
one, and they're
Yes.
saying, oh, I can. It's the quote unquote power. It's that power being both allows you, okay, I can do this and this. I don't need anything. And that becomes a big problem because then when you realize in that concept of male and female,
Yes.
all it's doing is about is self, 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 self.
Yes.
And people who are aligned with that self, self, self will only think about self. So anything in their professions and anyone who's in high parts of in high positions and
Yes.
they are within that understanding, they will only think of self, self, self.
And
Everyone
isn't
has
that the essence of Satanism? It's only you that matter. It's only your comfort and your benefit that you should be striving for in your life. No, forget about others. Who are they? It's their fault. It's their problem. You're number one. That is the essence of Satanism, in my view. And when they start telling young people, it's your choice. You can decide. Oh, well, if I decide to become a heroin addict, then I guess that's fine, right? Because I decided. So you're giving me all these decisions, and you're saying it's all about what I choose, but I'm not getting any role models. I'm not getting any guidance. I'm not getting any teaching. I'm not getting any discernment. All I'm getting is a bunch of selfishness, and
it,
that is the root of all evil.
yeah, and I don't even like using giving credence to giving them to evil because the word that's just giving them credit. I don't want.
Sorry to use those words, but I'm a little
I
bit
know that no.
short. I'm short on
I was
words,
gonna
you
say,
know.
I was gonna say, I just had it in my mind. It'll come back. Yeah. I agree. That is some. It is a really. Oh, that's what it was. Death of the soul.
Death of the soul, yes. Because the soul has to grow through interaction with others. It can't, if it's by itself in its own selfishness, it'll just freeze, won't it?
Hmm. And so it realizes like, oh, well, this person, they become jealous because, oh, this person has this. I should take that from them.
Well,
And
that's why Dante wrote that wonderful book, The Inferno, where he describes the lake, the frozen lake of lovelessness, where the very depths of the soul's disintegration is when you can't move, and you can't, no one can hear you, and you can't touch anyone because you're frozen in that lake of lovelessness.
yeah. And then even on top of that, the understanding of quote unquote sinning originally was a Japanese archer. When the Japanese archers,
Yes.
and they miss, they call that sin.
Ah,
That was actually the original word what sin meant, really meant.
ah.
And it comes down to it, they took that because that's the one thing that people don't realize.
Mhm.
Within the Bible, there are elements of life that they took outside of their box. They have their box
Mhm.
and they put people in that box. But outside of it, there are things that, oh, well, we can need to change it this way and in our own benefit.
Yes.
So this way, even though it meant this way for everybody outside of the box, inside of the box, they'll tell, well, this is what it means. And then it becomes just a long list of just alterations, changes,
Rules.
all that. Yeah, and rules and all that. Because they're taking things, and it's funny. They put you in the box, but they take things outside of the box to try to reprogram you.
Well, we've had a really philosophical and spiritual discussion today, and I just thought I'd, call it the end of this session because we don't want to lose people's attention spans too much by going
Yeah, I know.
an hour.
Every time.
Yeah, but I think we've really made a very good discussion that describes so many levels, and I hope that people listening to us today will grasp onto any of the parts of the picture that we're describing, and continue for themselves. For example, I highly recommend if you want to understand the world situation today, read 1984. I mean, and that's just one example of what you can do. Another one is start looking at if you have children in school, start looking at what they're learning.
Hmm.
And do you agree?
Of
And don't
course.
just leave it up to somebody else to educate your children. That's your responsibility. They're just your helpers.
Yeah, not having
You're the
blind faith.
educator.
Yeah, you don't want blind faith.
No,
Because you're just leading yourself into something that you haven't have full amount experience.
that's right.
And you have to experience it to understand it and be able to explain it.
Yes.
You shouldn't have blind faith. You shouldn't just give them off to a group of teachers and then expect, oh, it should be fine.
Right.
No.
And also, when governments are spending massive amounts of money painting sidewalks multiple colors, why is it that people who are working hard and paying taxes have to live on the street with no benefits and no services? Why is that? You should start asking these questions, in your
Yeah.
community, and let's get to the reconstruction of this planet, and the reconstruction of our societies, which have been abused for so long.
Yes.
That's my little rant.
Yeah, I like our minds are really synced anyway. So a lot of the understandings of how it works, I really feel it, the understanding that you have, it really aligns with what I know, and then it's just a confirmation.
Absolutely beautiful thing to say. Thank you, Walker, and that's why I've asked you to come back again today because I got a feeling that it was about the right time, and I hope we can do this again in a few months,
Yeah, of
and
course.
compare the situation that we find ourselves in then with now, and it's a good guide stone.
Yeah, of course.
So, thanks a million for spending your time to delve into these deep and powerful and important, questions and insights. And
Of
I just
course.
think my next stop is I'm going to have to get a reading with you.
Of course.
And
I'm getting.
I'm going to put your channel link in the description for
Of
anyone
course.
who could feel that they have some questions and could benefit from Walker's amazing abilities and insights. I would very much, like to recommend you.
Thank you. And of course I'll do the same on my channel. I took a little break, but I'm getting back into it. Um the a lot of the simple videos that I'm bringing up are will, like, even within the topics in this video, um I like the fact that we talked about it. I talked about it with you because a lot of the stuff that it's better to be able to understand in a way where it's funny that it goes back to in a section.
Yes,
um it's easier to explain things when you have different minds be able to bring a picture, and that
absolutely.
the connection with people. So yeah, vice versa with my channel. I'll get you on there. You can do a reading, and that would be awesome.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks a million, and we'll see you again soon, Walker. And I hope you have a fabulous day.
You too, Tim.
I'll be sending you a copy of this very soon.
Of course. All right. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye bye.